Did you know not all Golden Era celebrities were clean and hygienic? There were many who did not like to take baths, while there were many who put on the same clothes for weeks, even without changing them. Here are the 19 classic Hollywood actors who were famous for being really smelly. Clark Gable. He had the charm, the swagger, the perfect Hollywood image, until you got a little too close. Clark Gable, the undisputed king of Hollywood, was the epitome of leading man charisma. He made women swoon and men aspire to be him. But there was one thing even his on-screen magnetism couldn't hide: his infamous bad breath. The legend of Gable's halitosis has persisted for decades, with his Gone with the Wind co-star Vivien Leigh famously dreading their intimate scenes. The root of the issue? Gable suffered from severe gum disease early in his career, which resulted in the loss of several teeth and the need for dentures. Unfortunately, the dentures gave him a potent case of halitosis that no amount of mints or cologne could mask. Makeup artists and assistants did their best to freshen him up before scenes, but Leigh wasn't the only one who noticed. Crew members exchanged knowing glances, and whispers among Hollywood insiders suggested that his signature mustache often carried traces of old tobacco and whiskey, two vices that only made his breath worse. Despite his undeniable on-screen presence, those who worked closely with him knew the truth. Clark Gable was every bit the rugged Hollywood heartthrob, just not one you wanted to get too close to. Marilyn Monroe. A vision of perfection on screen, but behind the glamour was a woman who didn't always live up to the fantasy. Marilyn Monroe, with her platinum blonde curls and sultry voice, was Hollywood's ultimate bombshell. Yet, behind the dazzling gowns and breathtaking close-ups, her personal habits were far from glamorous. Whispers circulated that Monroe had an unconventional approach to hygiene, one that left co-stars and assistants wrinkling their noses. According to Hollywood insiders, Monroe rarely bathed, often opting instead to douse herself in heavy perfume to mask any unpleasant odors. Some claimed that her signature scent, Chanel No. 5, wasn't just a luxury, it was a necessity. Even more shocking, rumors suggested she had a habit of lounging in unwashed bedsheets for days, pushing leftover food under her sheets rather than properly disposing of it. Her housekeepers allegedly quit in frustration, unable to keep up with her chaotic living space, filled with piles of dishes and laundry that never seemed to make it to the wash. Then there was the rumor that her second husband, baseball legend Joe DiMaggio, once complained that Marilyn stank to high heaven after days of skipping showers. Some co-stars, like British actor Peter Lawford, reportedly found her poor hygiene off-putting to the point of refusing to share intimate moments with her. While the world saw an ethereal goddess, those behind the scenes knew that Monroe's allure came with an unexpected scent, one not everyone could ignore. Marlon Brando. A genius on screen, a nightmare for the nose. Marlon Brando revolutionized acting with his raw, intense performances, but those who worked with him often had to endure more than just his unpredictable behavior. His hygiene, or lack thereof, became the stuff of Hollywood legend. It was said that Brando, especially later in his career, developed an aversion to bathing, sometimes going days without showering or even changing his clothes. Colleagues on films like Last Tango in Paris and The Godfather would whisper about his overwhelming natural odor, an unfortunate byproduct of his refusal to use deodorant. Directors like Bernardo Bertolucci found themselves in an uncomfortable position, dealing with a brilliant but unkempt Brando whose scent could sometimes overpower an entire room. His fluctuating weight and indulgent eating habits didn't help either. Between meals that would rival an entire buffet and his penchant for letting food stains linger on his clothes, His lack of hygiene was no secret. His Superman co-star, Christopher Reeve, once mentioned how Brando would show up to set in the same stained shirts, refusing to take care of himself. And during the Apocalypse Now shoot, the combination of jungle heat and Brando's refusal to shower made being around him nearly unbearable. Despite his legacy as one of the greatest actors of all time, there was one undeniable truth. Marlon Brando's performances may have been unforgettable, but so was his smell. Errol Flynn, dashing, debonair, and drenched in scandal. Flynn's off-screen aroma was just as legendary as his on-screen adventures. Errol Flynn was the ultimate swashbuckling hero, a matinee idol who charmed audiences with his devil-may-care attitude. But behind thrilling sword fights and dashing good looks, there was another side to Flynn that his co-stars and assistants couldn't ignore: his notoriously unclean lifestyle. It was said that Flynn had a deep aversion to bathing, preferring to let his natural musk do the talking. He often walked onto the set with the unmistakable scent of stale sweat, old alcohol, and whatever misadventure he had indulged in the night before. Makeup artists reportedly struggled to keep him looking fresh, as he would often arrive in the same rumpled clothes, hair uncombed, and carrying the lingering scent of cigar smoke. And then there was his hygiene off-screen. It was widely rumored that Flynn's personal habits were as reckless as his on-screen personas. He was known for rarely washing his hair, leading to an oily sheen that no amount of powder could fix. His lifestyle, filled with excessive drinking and womanizing, didn't help matters. Some of his lovers even commented on his lack of cleanliness, claiming he rarely used soap and would go days without a proper wash. Despite the rumors, or perhaps because of them, Flynn's reputation as a rogue only grew. His charisma was undeniable, but so was the pungent aura that followed him. In the end, Errol Flynn was a man who lived life on his own terms. Personal hygiene be damned. Sidney Poitier, renowned for his dignified presence and impeccable style, Sidney Poitier remains a beacon of class in Hollywood. Yet behind the glittering veneer, hushed voices on set occasionally recalled an all-too-human flaw: a lapse in personal hygiene. Insiders say that on long, grueling shooting days, Poitier's dedication to his craft sometimes meant he skipped even the simplest rituals of grooming. Crew members have whispered that his focus on perfecting every line and gesture led him to forego a proper shower after hours of intense work. Makeup artists and costume teams were said to have quietly armed themselves with extra cologne and body sprays, trying in vain to mask a subtle, lingering aroma that would follow him into the next scene. A trusted assistant once confided that during marathon filming sessions, Poitier would be so absorbed in script readings that he neglected basic self-care, leaving behind a faint yet noticeable musk. Although his on-screen magnetism and dignified charm captivated millions, those behind the scenes could not help but note this human imperfection. In an industry where every detail is scrutinized, such whispers became an ironic footnote, a reminder that even legends of refined elegance occasionally reveal their vulnerable, imperfect side. Ultimately, despite the backstage grumbles, Sidney Poitier's professionalism and warm character ensured that his legacy would remain unblemished by the transient faults of daily routine. Francis Ford Coppola. Francis Ford Coppola, the visionary filmmaker behind epic tales and timeless classics, is celebrated for his creative genius. Yet behind the polished facade of his production empire, there lurked a lesser-known chapter of personal neglect. Colleagues on set have recounted with a mix of amusement and disbelief that Coppola, engrossed in the whirlwind of creative meetings and extended shooting schedules, often disregarded the basics of personal hygiene. Long hours spent deliberating over every scene sometimes meant that a proper shower was sacrificed for the sake of the next big idea. Production assistants and wardrobe teams recalled how his office, filled with scattered scripts and coffee cups, would occasionally betray an unmistakable odor, a blend of stale perspiration and late-night studio snacks. Some insiders even joked that the director's natural aroma became part of his creative signature, a raw reminder of the sleepless nights and frenzied energy that fueled his cinematic masterpieces. Although his films were renowned for their impeccable detail and artistry, behind the camera, whispers of his unrefined grooming became a persistent topic of gossip. In a world obsessed with image, Coppola's disregard for routine self-care served as a quirky counterpoint to his artistic perfectionism, a humanizing detail that underscored the relentless pace of genius in the heart of Hollywood. Al Pacino. Al Pacino, the fiery embodiment of on-screen intensity, has long captivated audiences with his explosive performances and razor-sharp presence. Yet behind the powerful persona that defines his legendary career, whispers among close colleagues reveal a less glamorous aspect of his off-camera routine. It is said that on the most demanding days, when Pacino would dive deep into his method acting, he sometimes neglected the basic rituals of personal hygiene. Crew members recall that during extended shooting schedules, the famed actor's focus on channeling raw emotion left little time for refreshing himself. Costume and makeup artists have discreetly noted that extra measures, such as additional cologne and desperate attempts to air out cramped dressing rooms, were occasionally required to counteract an unmistakable, lingering odor. A veteran assistant once mentioned that, in the midst of emotional scenes, Pacino's natural musk would become apparent, a side effect of long hours without proper freshening up. Despite this, his colleagues admired his uncompromising dedication to his art, even if it meant enduring some off-camera imperfections. In an industry that values both talent and image, Pacino's unintentional lapses in personal care became a quirky, if whispered, footnote in his storied legacy, a reminder that even the most powerful icons are, at their core, human. Robert De Niro. Robert De Niro, celebrated for his transformative roles and intense dedication to method acting, is revered as one of cinema's greatest icons. Yet behind the chiseled on-screen persona, backstage gossip hints at a side seldom seen by the public, a recurring lapse in personal hygiene. Long shooting days and relentless rehearsals often found De Niro so absorbed in his craft that he would occasionally skip the ritual of a proper shower. Crew members recall that on particularly exhausting sets, his natural scent, marked by the trace of long hours and minimal freshening, would permeate the air, prompting makeup artists and costume designers to scramble with extra sprays and scented mists. An old friend from the production crew once confided that, despite his legendary status, De Niro's focus on embodying his character sometimes came at the expense of basic self-care. Such candid whispers were shared in quiet corners of bustling studios, where the irony of a man celebrated for his precision on screen was noted in his unintentional neglect off-camera, while the actor's uncompromising dedication has cemented his status in film history. Those who worked with him could not help but recall moments when his natural musk became an unavoidable part of the daily routine. In the delicate balance between art and human frailty, De Niro's personal habits serve as a humble reminder that even legends face the mundane challenges of everyday life. Johnny Depp. Johnny Depp, an actor whose chameleonic performances have defined modern cinema, carries with him a legacy of eccentricity both on and off the screen. Yet behind the captivating mystique lies a tale of personal neglect that has occasionally stirred whispered gossip among those who have shared the set with him. Colleagues have noted that Depp's immersive method acting sometimes pushed him to the extremes, with reports suggesting that during particularly grueling shoots, he would forego routine hygiene practices in favor of diving deep into character. Makeup artists and costume teams have recounted how, on certain days, the unmistakable tang of unwashed perspiration and stale after-hours would permeate his dressing room, forcing them to scramble with extra cologne and fabric fresheners. A longtime set veteran recalled that Depp's natural odor, a byproduct of intense emotional scenes and prolonged hours, would occasionally become a distraction during close-up moments. Despite his undeniable talent and magnetic allure, these behind-the-scenes lapses in personal care earned him a reputation as an unpredictable presence, one whose brilliance on screen was sometimes offset by the realities of long, unrefreshed days. In a world where every detail is magnified, Depp's quirks, both artistic and personal, have become part of the lore that defines him, reminding us that even the most enigmatic stars are not immune to the everyday challenges of human life. Bette Davis, the formidable queen of Hollywood drama, commanded the screen with an intensity that left audiences breathless. But behind the scenes, whispers of personal neglect quietly circulated. It was said that during long, grueling shooting days, Davis's singular focus on her craft often came at the expense of the most basic rituals of self-care. Costume designers and makeup artists recalled how her dressing room sometimes carried an unmistakable aroma, a remnant of hastily skipped showers and long hours in character. Crew members would discreetly exchange knowing glances and extra sprays of cologne, all in an effort to counteract the lingering musk that followed her from set to set. Some insiders even joked that the same fiery spirit that powered her unforgettable performances also ignited a stubborn disregard for personal grooming. Though Davis's on-screen prowess remained undisputed, the backstage gossip painted a picture of a woman who, in the throes of artistic immersion, would occasionally allow the practicalities of hygiene to fall by the wayside. Such candid observations, shared in hushed tones among those who worked closely with her, added an ironic layer to the legend of Bette Davis, a star whose fierce determination and uncompromising talent were occasionally marred by very human imperfections. Even now, those recollections serve as a reminder that behind the glamour and the accolades, even the most revered figures had their moments of vulnerability. Christina Crawford, whose very name became synonymous with scandal in Hollywood's golden era, was as much a subject of whispered intrigue as she was a formidable presence on screen. Behind the meticulously curated image she presented to the public, insiders claim that Christina's personal hygiene sometimes left much to be desired. Close colleagues and crew members recalled that during lengthy filming schedules, her focus on rehearsals and dramatic intensity sometimes led her to overlook basic grooming routines. Makeup artists would often be seen hastily reapplying fragrances and freshening her look between takes, a subtle yet persistent attempt to counteract an odor that some described as uncomfortably robust. Fellow cast members, though admiring her fierce talent, could not help but remark on the occasional lapses in her upkeep, a detail that became fodder for hushed backstage banter. The reputation that followed Christina was one of complexity, a woman whose passionate dedication to her art sometimes resulted in a less than pristine personal aura. Gossip circulated that her busy schedule and relentless drive left little time for self-care, and that her natural scent, though perhaps only a minor inconvenience on screen, became a notorious secret off-camera. In the realm of Hollywood legend, Christina Crawford's story remains a blend of talent and tumult, a reminder that even those who captivate millions on film are not immune to the everyday challenges of maintaining a polished persona. Faye Dunaway. Faye Dunaway, an icon of sophistication and fierce talent, enchanted audiences with performances that defined a generation. But behind the glitz of her on-screen allure, backstage whispers revealed an unexpected vulnerability. Crew members and co-stars have recounted that Dunaway's dedication to her craft sometimes led her to neglect simple aspects of personal grooming. On marathon shooting days, when the pressure of embodying complex characters mounted, it was said that her routine would occasionally skip the basics, leaving behind a trace of an unrefined aroma in the dressing room. Makeup artists, tasked with preserving her impeccable image, often found themselves laboring with extra touches of fragrance to mask a natural scent that some insiders deemed less than desirable. These candid observations became part of the quiet lore of the set, with whispered jokes about how even a star of Dunaway's caliber was not immune to the pitfalls of a hectic schedule. Though her brilliance on screen was unquestioned, the subtle backstage gossip about her sporadic lapses in self-care served as a humanizing counterpoint to her public persona. In an industry that revered perfection, these moments of honest imperfection only added to the mystique of Faye Dunaway. A reminder that even legends have their off-camera vulnerabilities. Constance Marie Ockelman. Constance Marie Ockelman, a name known to those with an eye for the intriguing undercurrents of Hollywood's storied past, carried herself with a refined air that belied the more mundane realities of everyday life. Close associates recall that while Ockelman's public appearances were polished to perfection, behind the scenes there were whispered tales of a less meticulous approach to personal grooming. During extended periods on set, colleagues noted that her focus on her work sometimes led to a neglect of basic hygiene, with a faint, unintentional odor emerging as a byproduct of her long, uninterrupted hours of creative dedication. Makeup artists and wardrobe assistants, ever vigilant in their efforts to preserve her elegant image, would occasionally find themselves counteracting this natural byproduct with extra spritzes of perfume. In quiet moments, trusted assistants mentioned that Ockelman's disregard for a proper routine was not born of laziness, but rather a single-minded focus on perfecting her role. Such observations, shared in discreet, knowing tones, became part of the backstage folklore, a reminder that even those who epitomize grace and sophistication are not immune to the challenges of maintaining everyday standards. Constance Marie Ockelman's legacy, therefore, is a blend of artistic brilliance and the unvarnished reality of human imperfection, a story as nuanced as the roles she portrayed on screen. Alan Ladd. Alan Ladd, the quintessential tough guy of classic Hollywood, was celebrated for his cool demeanor and rugged charm on screen. Yet off-camera, whispers of personal neglect occasionally punctuated the otherwise polished image. Fellow crew members and co-stars have recounted that during long shooting schedules, Ladd's focus on perfecting his stony, enigmatic characters sometimes came at the cost of basic self-care. It was said that on particularly grueling days, his dressing room would bear the subtle yet unmistakable hint of an unrefined personal routine, a faint aroma that required extra measures by makeup artists and costume designers to neutralize. Insiders joked that the very intensity that made Ladd an unforgettable presence on film also contributed to a tendency to overlook the simpler necessities of daily grooming. His natural musk, reportedly a result of skipped showers and extended hours lost in character, became a subject of discreet backstage banter. Though his performance and on-screen allure were beyond reproach, the occasional lapses in his personal upkeep served as a reminder that even Hollywood's most iconic stars were not immune to the everyday challenges of life. Alan Ladd's legacy, imbued with both steely determination and human frailty, continues to captivate, offering a glimpse into the complex interplay between art, persona, and the raw realities of being human. Daniel Day-Lewis. In the hushed corridors of cinema, Daniel Day-Lewis is revered as a titan of transformative acting, a man whose dedication borders on the obsessive. Yet behind his renowned method lies a secret seldom discussed in the limelight. Colleagues have confided in quiet tones that during grueling shooting schedules, Day-Lewis's singular focus on embodying his characters sometimes led him to neglect even the most basic self-care routines. On long, exhausting days where every moment was consumed by research and immersive preparation, whispers suggest that he would forego his usual hygiene rituals, resulting in an unmistakable lingering scent on set. Makeup artists and wardrobe assistants recall furtive glances and extra spritzes of cologne being discreetly applied in an effort to mask a subtle but persistent musk. Fellow actors, although in awe of his transformative prowess, would sometimes joke in private that the intensity of his performance was matched only by the raw humanity of his off-camera vulnerabilities. This small human flaw, an unintended byproduct of his relentless pursuit of perfection, became fodder for backstage banter. Despite the occasional inconvenience for those working closely with him, Day-Lewis's reputation as a master craftsman remained unblemished. In the delicate interplay between art and the everyday, his story serves as a reminder that even legends can be as fallible as the rest of us, their brilliant artistry interwoven with the simple realities of human existence. Bernardo Bertolucci. Amid the sweeping vistas of cinematic artistry, Bernardo Bertolucci's name evokes grand narratives and profound storytelling. Yet, behind the director's visionary brilliance lay an often overlooked quirk that few dared mention openly. Trusted assistants and veteran crew members whispered that during marathon shooting days, Bertolucci's immersion in his craft sometimes resulted in a neglect of basic personal grooming. It was said that the director, so focused on weaving complex emotional tapestries, would occasionally forego the simple pleasure of a refreshing shower, leaving behind a subtle, lingering odor that drifted across production sets. Wardrobe and makeup teams would labor with extra measures, spritzing fragrant mists and strategically placing scented candles, to counteract the natural musk that seemed to follow him like an uninvited guest. While his films were celebrated for their aesthetic perfection and narrative depth, backstage gossip hinted at a more mundane reality. A man whose passion for art sometimes overshadowed his own well-being. Colleagues recounted with a blend of admiration and amused exasperation that Bertolucci's creative genius was as raw and unfiltered as the scent he occasionally left in his wake. In the world of cinema, where every detail is scrutinized, these whispered anecdotes became a quirky counterpoint to his legacy. A reminder that even the most celebrated visionaries are not immune to the ordinary challenges of everyday life. Ren Clair. Step into the enigmatic world of French cinema, and you encounter Ren Clair, a director whose poetic vision and whimsical narratives captivated audiences worldwide. Yet behind his refined public persona, close collaborators recall moments of unintentional neglect in his personal grooming routine. In the intimate backstage corridors of his film sets, whispers circulated that Clair's focus on the magic of storytelling sometimes meant sacrificing the basics of self-care. Crew members and trusted assistants recalled that during particularly long shooting sessions, the legendary filmmaker would, quite inadvertently, leave behind a faint but noticeable aroma, an echo of skipped showers and long hours lost in creative reverie. Makeup artists, striving to preserve the delicate balance of his carefully crafted image, would often reach for extra dabs of perfume to mask this subtle imperfection. Despite his elegant films and sophisticated dialogue, these murmurs of personal neglect became an unintentional part of his off-camera lore. Fellow artists and technicians would sometimes chuckle privately, noting that even a maestro of mood and atmosphere was not immune to the humdrum realities of human existence. In the delicate interplay between art and life, Ren Clair's occasional lapses in hygiene serve as a quietly humanizing detail, an enduring reminder that even the most revered creators carry with them the simple, unpolished truths of everyday life. William Bendix. William Bendix, a stalwart of classic American cinema known for his robust performances and no-nonsense charm, was celebrated for his on-screen presence that exuded rugged masculinity. Yet, behind the sturdy facade, whispered accounts from co-stars and crew members revealed a less refined aspect of his off-camera life. It was said that during the extended, unpredictable hours of filming, Bendix's focus on delivering gritty, authentic performances sometimes came at the expense of basic personal hygiene. Veterans of the set recalled that his dressing room was occasionally permeated by a distinct, lingering odor, a byproduct of long shooting days where the simple ritual of a refreshing shower was sacrificed in favor of his craft. Makeup artists and wardrobe teams would often labor with extra measures to neutralize the scent, employing potent colognes and fabric fresheners in hopes of maintaining the star's polished image. Colleagues jested in low voices that Bendix's natural aroma was as rough-edged as his characters, a tangible reminder of the man behind the heroic roles. Despite these candid backstage murmurs, Bendix's legendary talent and authenticity continued to captivate audiences. In the interplay between raw talent and everyday human frailties, his story stands as a testament to the idea that even the most iconic figures are not immune to the simple challenges of maintaining personal care under the pressures of fame. Jeff Lenberg. Jeff Lenberg, a chronicler of Hollywood's storied past and an influential voice in documenting its legends, often found himself privy to the untold, behind-the-scenes details of the film industry. Yet even as a respected historian, Lenberg's own experiences in the world of cinema were not without their share of whispered gossip about personal habits. Colleagues in the archival and production circles recalled that Lenberg, in his fervent pursuit of capturing every nuance of film lore, sometimes overlooked the basics of his own personal grooming. It was rumored that during marathon research sessions and on-set interviews, his dedication to digging deep into Hollywood's secrets occasionally resulted in a less than pristine personal aroma. Fellow researchers and production assistants would quietly exchange knowing looks and extra supplies of mints and cologne, as Lenberg's focus on uncovering cinematic treasures occasionally left him with a subtle, lingering odor. Such backstage anecdotes, while never detracting from his scholarly contributions, painted a picture of a man whose passion for history sometimes overshadowed the practicalities of self-care. In a realm where every detail is meticulously recorded, these whispered observations became a charming footnote in the legacy of Jeff Lenberg, a reminder that even those who document the brilliance of others are, in their own way, wonderfully human, complete with the occasional imperfections that make them all the more relatable.